All right, well, good evening all. Welcome to our Monday, September 11th Committee of the Whole meeting. To start here, we've got a few things to go over. Daryl, maybe if I put you on the spot on the streetlights, a little background. I think we already discussed step one of this, approving this, but some new lights for Winchester Woods.
Yeah, this is for Winchester Woods Phase 3, which is the latest portion of the subdivision that Dave Visser developed off of Kinney. This is to add 4 new streetlights within that development, and we require this money to be placed in escrow up front when the developer makes his application. So now that the street is in and accepted and houses are being constructed, it's time to install the streetlights, and again, they will be paid for by the developer, and then the city will take over and pay for the operating costs. But you can see the last page of the memo has the map location showing the 4 street light locations, and these will be LED lights, so they are a lot more cost effective than the old version that Consumers has. So this is pretty straightforward. We'll just add these to our current contract with Consumers Energy once you take action on this.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Commissioners, any questions for Daryl on the streetlights? All right, so we'll be good at 7 o'clock. We'll come to Mayor, Clerk, and Commissioner comments in just a minute. But I did want to put out one thing as for discussion with the group here, because we're all together. There have been probably, I think, of the top 3 complaints we get in the city right now. Top 3 consistently are the deer overpopulation, is the deer overpopulation in the city. And I think many of you have heard the same thing from others, and yards are being impacted, landscaping, our car deer fatalities are up significantly year over year, including our own city vehicles hitting said deer and so forth. So there has been a concerted effort from residents to want us to do something as a city. How the process works, if there's any type of property or any type of management program with the deer put into place, it actually has to, DNR permits it, but it is up to the localities to draft said requisition for that in the paperwork. So that being said, I wanted to throw out for the group for discussion. If you've been hearing things, please do share. If you have thoughts on the matter, please do share. Depending on where we go from there, we may or may not ask city staff to do some follow-up on this of what those the management plans could look like.
Yeah, I can go. I have heard from some residents on this, and I've been working through the systems that I know to try and have some conversations about it with DNR. But I think certainly if city staff is able and willing, we would love to see some type of engagement at that level. I've heard substantial issues in certain parts of our first ward regarding concern about deer population and specifically traffic-related incidents involving deer. So anything that we can do, I would encourage additional action on behalf of the city.
Yeah, fair enough. Commissioners, Mr. Rose?
I would totally agree with that. I do have had some people, expressing concerns, and I personally have way too many of them in my yard. And if there is anything that we can do to reduce the risk, especially for traffic, it's no fun to get in an accident with a deer. It's not fun for the deer. It's not, it's not very productive for the person driving the vehicle either. And it can really snarl things up. And if there is something that the staff is willing to do, I have had people reach out to me and ask for that to happen.
Okay, fair enough. Commissioners, anything down here?
Mayor, just I guess just to be on the record about it, I haven't heard anything from my neighbors, and I certainly have deer roam my property all the time. So I'll ask around. I'll start looking around on that, because I actually haven't heard that at all.
Yeah, especially up in your area.
Yeah.
I don't, we have a few deer that run back by our residential area, but I did get a resident that reached out to me about, what is the protocol for hunting in the city of Walker, and Daryl and Chief Manko were very helpful. You know, archery, basically what they said was that, you know, archery hunting, that's fine within the city limits. But when it comes to anything with a firearm, you know, they're going to have to follow all the DNR rules and such. But I think that this is something that maybe we can look into to ensure that we can help maybe limit some of the population and eliminate some of the population, I should say. But we want to do it in a safe measure, depending on where the residents are, and have some protocols in place. So that would be my only thought.
Yeah, I spoke with another lady on pheasant. There's been a couple at this point over off of Mullins as well, cutting through the roads there. But lady at pheasant the other night had mentioned the height of her fence, and I believe it was 7 feet tall, and that the deer just continued to clear the fence coming across the top. And then had shared with me that she was standing there, and she says, "I can send you the picture." She said there are seven bucks out here walking side by side, and obviously that's going to impact the population of the deer significantly over there.
I was just going to say, I did a year ago got one email regarding it from Blandford, actually. And they have, on the 264 acres of natural land, have too many there, so they were asking for help on that. So.
Oh, okay. So I think that's one. This is probably our source, and I think it's fantastic that the Old Elks Golf Course is you know, being preserved in the way that it is and so forth. But I think it also opens up a whole bunch of challenges that we didn't have a few years ago. So that being said, if it's all right with the group, and Commissioner Burke can do a little digging with this neighborhood as well, is maybe ask our city manager to have staff follow up with maybe even through Blandford and check, because that's going to be a spot where we would have to do a fair amount of the management at that point. Look at that and then just see what the protocols are. Probably we're going to have to work with City Grand Rapids as well, because we split the land over there, but happy to speak with Mayor Bliss on that as well and ask her her thoughts on, or take it to their commission to see what the response might be. But it's getting to the point of I think we can all share stories if you have yards and gardens and so forth, and I think I have a few dozen hostas that manage to make it about a week when they're fully bloomed, and they're mowed down one night and you have celery stalks sticking up out of the ground. So I want to keep the candy store in the backyard. I just want to put a lid on the candy and not make it as easy to get to. So, all right, so that'll be that.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Just a couple comments. One, just to clarify Roxanne's comment about the archery, that is permitted, but again, that needs to follow the DNR regulations as well. So.
And you can't do it on the nature center or any of the grounds.
Well, right, it's got to be on your property. You have to follow all their
Correct,
guidelines.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
I'm sorry if I misspoke, but that's what.
You're on point with that. That's good.
Yep.
And I just know that I've had conversations with both of our neighbors to the east and the west who are experiencing problems, both Grand Rapids, Talmadge Township, and the Nature Center. So I think it behooves us to work as a group and see what options are out there, because some communities have been very successful with a culling program, others not so much. So I think it's warranted to see what options are out there and what's available to us to even consider. So we will look into that and come back to you at a future date. We receive lots of comments at the city too. I'm sure Debbie receives some, and we get people at the counter. And now that it's tax time, I'm sure we'll hear it again. It's usually this time of year when people come in and they want to know what their taxes go for and what can we do with help control the deer population. So we'll kind of work on that a little bit.
Yeah, no, good stuff. Yes, Commissioner.
Who is responsible for picking up the carcasses? Or does our DPW do some of that?
Well, it depends where they're laying. If it's along the county road,
Right.
generally the Kent County Road Commission, but yeah, our DPW crew will do it on our roads that we control, yeah.
I'd be curious how many they've gotten
Yeah,
in the
that'd be-
last year or something,
Yeah.
or this fall, what they've had to deal
Yeah, and
with.
we could get with the road commission. I mean, they did a story, I think, a year or so ago. They did a special on the road commission's deer pickup program that they have along the county roads. It was amazing the number of deer they have countywide. But I could get a number from our DPW.
I'd just be
too.
curious, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I drive Wilson a lot, and every day there's always a new one. It seems like, anyway.
Yep. All right, good discussion. At this point, that was all that was on my immediate list of discussion items. I will turn it over. I'll start with our clerk. Commissioner Gilbert.
Yeah, I have just a couple of things. Planning Commission met this week. We approved another couple of industrial projects through Walkerview and Northridge. Always a good thing, but the big project at Planning Commission was a pretty substantive change to some of the stylings of the units at English Hills. So you may probably, specifically for Tom, hear from some of our residents over in the English Hills condominium project about some changes that occurred there. Basically, for the initial phase of the project, what has changed is they went from each unit having a garage to 2 less units in the project, more units per building but less buildings overall, but again, a net loss of 2 units, and only about 60% of those units will now have garages. So pretty substantive change to what was approved on that part of the project, but impact is that they're losing 2 units. And there are some neighbors who are, there's a number of neighbors who are at the meeting, so just for awareness for all the members of the commission. The only other thing, I did attend the Mayor's Grand River cleanup over in Grand Rapids on Saturday. Got to share some time with some of the good folks in our neighbor cities and help get the event kicked off to help clean up the Grand River. So another good time and lots going on.
Awesome. Good. Yes, and thank you for covering Saturday morning for that. So perfect. Commissioner Babcock? Commissioner Groders?
I had the privilege last week, I think it was, of you and I going down and meeting Fred Edison. It is not Edison, it is Edison. And he was very interested to learn more about the history of the family in the neighborhood, and the mayor is quite familiar, and I learned a lot. One thing that I came across, or actually Fred had shared with us, is an app called StoryCore LLC, and they use it. It's free. Anybody can download it, and you can record history, record conversations with people, in order to keep that history preserved for future generations. I haven't quite figured out how to make it all work. I was assured that everything that we did was uploaded and it's all there, but for some reason I still can't get to it. But I think Fred shared with us a lot of good information, and you were able to follow up on some things with him as well. Yeah. So that was kind of fun. It was really fun.
Highlight of a day. Yeah, it was good to do.
Yeah, that was nice. Let's see, I went to the Area Agency on Aging Advisory Committee meeting today, working on some legislation, promoting it, or I guess it's in very early stages, but to improve the quality of life for adult foster care home residents. There's really no formal training that's required for these folks, and apparently you don't need any formal education even to distribute meds, and obviously mistakes get made, and anyways, there needs to be a little bit better oversight and somehow figure out how to make people care about taking care of the vulnerable populations. So, that is all.
Good stuff. Thank you. Commissioner Chase is absent this evening. Hope she's feeling better. Commissioner DeShane.
I'm all set. Thank you.
Commissioner Burke. City Manager.
Just a couple things going on this week. On Wednesday afternoon, there's a meeting with the Kent County local units of government. They usually meet biannually, so this quarter's meeting is over at City of Kentwood City Hall, so if anybody can make it, if you have an RSVP to the county, they would appreciate letting them know if you're going to attend, just so they have an accurate head count. So that's Wednesday afternoon, I think, from 3 to 5. And then Thursday morning, we have a meeting of the library design team, so I think that's the results of the charrette we did a couple of weeks ago, so it'll be exciting to see what kind of designs they come up with. So.
Outstanding. Well, if schedules permit, please join us. I think it's 1 o'clock on Thursday.
I think so. Scott's up. Yeah.
1 o'clock, yep. please feel free to join us. The only two things that I had on my list for this week, thank you to Julie Block and her decades of service. You know, I think of the all the hats she wore here as our income tax director, our IT director. I know I've seen her taking garbage out the back even at some point. She just did a lot of things around here, and I'd be remiss. It was a little bittersweet time to see her and a couple of the other recent retirees income tax back there. But I think a legacy of a leader too is, did you leave it where that continuity can continue to you know, grow back there. And I mean, we really have a solid team back there. So just wanted to give a shout out to her and wish her well in her retirement. Although I don't see her sitting still very long. So that's that. And secondly, as a thank you to our police department who worked with, I don't know if Chief Mankel's in here yet, but just working with Chick-fil-A on the grand opening on Alpine. I believe for the most part, unless the First Ward Commissioners or anybody else has heard anything, it's gone really smooth. And traffic is not, you know, we definitely nailed it in Standale working with Chick-fil-A, and same thing here. And I know that there was multiple meetings around traffic flow and what that plan was going to be, not just for opening day, but the peak times for the subsequent days where they expected to have some traffic stacking out there. And I, to the best of my knowledge, I've not heard of anything of that being an issue. So that's all I had on my list. We are at 6:47. If there's nothing else for the good of the order, we can take a slight pause, and if we can all be back here about 6:58, 6:59, we'll be good to go. Well, good evening, everyone, and for those of you, your first time here, welcome to the city of Walker. See a lot of unfamiliar faces, but you're always welcome here. So we'll go ahead, we're going to kick off our Monday, September 11th regular city commission meeting. Before I turn over invocation to Commissioner Gilbert, you know, September 11th, 2001, obviously a tragedy that, you know, I think most of us in the room went through, and definitely something that weighs heavily in our hearts. And I think too that the times I've been through Manhattan and been down New York and been down to where the World Trade Towers originally stood, it continues to be a sombering reminder of what took place that day. So if I would ask before we deliver invocation, a very brief moment of silence, please. Thank you. Commissioner Gilbert.
Thank you. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to be here together to work on behalf of the people of the city of Walker on this special day of remembrance for our nation. As we recall those painful days and hours, we thank you for the grace you gave all of us to come together as a country. The sense of unity that fell over the country during those trying times was a blessing for all of our communities throughout the nation. As we remember September 11th, we ask that you watch over all of those whose families and lives were impacted by the attacks, and that you continue to protect all of those who are called to serve our country and communities to keep us all safe. And we ask that you continue to give us the guidance to do good, lead with kindness, and inspire unity in our own community. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'd like to invite everybody to stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. If I could please ask our clerk to call the roll.
Mayor Carey,
Present.
Commissioner Burke,
Present.
Commissioner DeShane,
Present.
Commissioner Groders, Commissioner Babcock,
Present.
Commissioner Gilbert.
Present.
And before we jump into approval of the minutes, I'd like a motion, please, to excuse the absence of Commissioner Chase this evening.
I'll make that motion.
Support.
Commissioner DeShane, Commissioner Groders, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you. You're good there. Next on the list is approval of minutes from the August 28th, 2023 meeting. Is there any discussion on said minutes? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion for approval and support, please.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Support.
Commissioner Burke, Commissioner Babcock, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? You're passed. Thank you. Chief, the floor is yours. We got a lot of stuff going on. This is awesome.
All right, thank you for giving us time to come in front of you once again to recognize some officers. So tonight we're here for the painting of the police badge, which will be a career highlight as we progress through this noble profession. But remember, the badge is only a symbol of what our profession stands for. The protectors of those in need, the helpless, and the defenseless. Treating all people with the respect, dignity, and compassion in a way that you'd want to be treated. As a Walker police officer, you'll be held to a higher standard than those you'll be serving. Not because you are any better than them, but for what the police badge represents. Honor, dignity, integrity, and justice. Please remember to never let your ego or your personal agenda dictate your character. It is a privilege wearing the Walker Police Badge, and that privilege can also be taken away. The badge is much more than a symbol of your authority as a peace officer. It will be your personal commitment to serve with the traits previously mentioned, and as a reminder, stay humble, grounded, and dedicated to serving all people in this awesome profession. At this time, if you'd please raise your right hand for the oath of office. As a Walker police officer, you are to act as an official representative of our city and required and trusted to work within the law. Your powers and duties as a police officer are granted upon you by the state of Michigan. Your fundamental duties include serving, protecting the innocent, keeping the peace, and ensuring the right of all. They shall perform all your duties impartially, without regard to status, sex, race, political belief, or aspiration. All citizens and officers alike will be treated equally with courtesy, consideration, and dignity. Do you swear to perform these duties?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. At this time, Bobby? Officer Tyler Osborne was hired with us on May 3rd, 2023. Tyler graduated from Ionia High School and went to Fair State University, where he received his bachelor's degree in criminal justice. After graduating from Fair State University, Tyler worked for the Ionia County Sheriff's Office for a year and a half. Tyler enjoys hunting, fishing, boating, and hockey. He says he was pretty good a wrestler, but I'm still waiting for my match with him. Tyler just finished his field training, is assigned to the night shift patrol with Sergeant Geltema, and he's currently attending classes to become a medical first responder. At this time, Tyler's mother, Bobby, will do the pinning of the badge. Garrett? Officer Garrett Lanninga was also hired on May 3rd. Garrett graduated from Unity Christian High School, where he also attended the Career Line Tech Center, earning his medical first responder license while he was there. Garrett worked as a police cadet at the Holland Police Department for 3 years. Garrett enjoys hiking, camping, disc golf, and anything to do with the outdoor activities. Garrett graduated from Grand Rapids Community College before coming to Walker. He is finishing his field training and will be on the night shift with Sergeant Maley starting September 20th. At this time, his mother Becky and Steve will do the pinning of the badge. Oh, you can't. You got anything to say?
I just want to thank the City Commission and the City of Walker for this opportunity to serve my community, be present and active throughout the community.
Thank you.
Everything he said. I'm not very good at speeches. I'm very excited to be here, and I thank you all for this opportunity very much.
Thank you. Welcome.
You want to do that up here?
So officers, when Chief is done there and gives you the thumbs up, we have a tradition around here. A lot of us don't get to see you every day, and I want to not only welcome you, but thank you really for the service to the community. So we have a tradition. We'll have you come up in just a moment when you're dismissed to come up around and shake each of our hands. We can welcome you, thank you, and we'll let you slide out then at the other side.
Outside.
Tyler, you can right up the top. There you go.
Now for the promotion of Sergeant Andrew Geltema. Tonight is an extra special as chief, as I can participate in the official welcome of the new officers into the law enforcement career, but also recognize the officer with numerous years of experience in this profession, as he was promoted to the rank of sergeant in March. Sergeant Andrew Geltema attended Grand Rapids Police Academy and also has received a bachelor's degree from Fair State University. Before coming to work at Walker in 2015, Sergeant Geltema worked for the Nashville Police Department and then St. Clair Shores Police Department. While at Walker, Sergeant Geltema has been a field training officer, special response team member, a member of the Kent County Mobile Field Force team, and was promoted as a corporal in 2020. Promotion to the rank of sergeant is probably the most critical assignment within our organization, This assignment has the responsibility and opportunity to lead, mentor, and direct our officers into the professional organization our community deserves and expects. Sergeant Geltema has embraced this opportunity. It is my pleasure to have Kayla, Lucas, and Emily to pin his badge.
Thanks. I've really appreciated the opportunity to further my career and be a sergeant here in Walker. This is the best city in the area, only one I'd want to work for. I've enjoyed it since March. Looking forward to continuing it. Thanks.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Well, and for our family and friends out in the audience, this is a community we take great pride in supporting our law enforcement. And please, as you leave us this evening, understand that your family, your friends are well taken care of here. We do care and back our law enforcement unequivocally. So thank you very much for allowing them to serve. And you're welcome to stay and join us. You won't offend us either. There's riveting information up we're going to be doing tonight. So Chief, if they want to stay, they're welcome to. Otherwise, do you want to take a pause or?
Yep, we'll take a second. I think
Take your time then. Yep.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you all for coming. All right. Awesome. Well, we'll get rolling here. Next on the list is public comment on agenda items. Public comment on agenda items only. You are more than welcome to approach the podium. I do believe the mic is on. Yes, Madam Clerk, thank you. Somebody wishing to come up and speak on agenda items, feel free to come forward. Just share your name and where you're from and speak. So, going once, going twice. I see some people coming, so, yep. And if you tap on that just to make sure. Perfect, thank you.
All right, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Andrea Masvero. I'm the Executive Vice President of Direct Group. I'm here on behalf of the Vista Project, Vista 45, and on behalf of JAG Development as well. We're obviously here to address the moratorium on housing approvals. This group may not be quite as familiar with Vista, but we've been working with the Planning Commission for more than 14 months now, closer to 18 months. We received our first zoning approval 14 months ago. So in the meantime, we have done a lot of work, met with a lot of representatives of the city, had a lot of professionals engaged in getting the approvals and negotiating the various requirements and requests of the city and the commissioners. And we're now on the agenda for October 18th for our approval. We have a full prepared preliminary site plan, and we've met all the requirements, and we just received our final approval from MDOT about the interaction with Lake Michigan Drive. So to hear, to have come this far, and to hear now at the end of the process that we have a moratorium for an undefined period of time is clearly very discouraging, very disappointing. And given that we had a meeting with the city just not 3 weeks ago, and were put onto the agenda and not told about this process, unfortunately feels we've worked hard to negotiate with the city in good faith, to make a lot of accommodations, to provide public roads, to provide traffic signals and turn lanes, all these other things. And it doesn't feel like the city is acting in good faith in this way. So, and I think if you can put yourself in our shoes, we've committed a lot of time and resources to making sure that this is a really high quality development, serves the city well. And just kind of a punch at this point to have this unfolding. So what I'm going to request is that we include an exception for this project. I know there's an appeal process in place. Taking that additional time at this point is yet another delay that we've encountered over and over in this process. And so we would ask in fairness that you consider an exception to the ordinance that would allow Vista to move forward. At the July 20th, 22 Planning Commission meeting, the Planning Commission confirmed in its motion that this project complies with the plan. And I know that that's one of the main concerns that this moratorium is meant to address. And so given that position by the Planning Commission, we would ask again that this exception be incorporated into the ordinance. Just for a little bit of timeline, like I said, July 20th of 2022, we had the zoning approved by the Planning Commission. On the PASP was tabled at that point with just a few minor adjustments, and in fact we had actually made them all the day prior to the meeting, so they were minor edits to the plan. On December 7th, we went back to the Planning Commission. It was approved with just one condition, and that was that we address the traffic at Ferndale onto Lake Michigan Drive. We have done that. As I mentioned, we have MDOT approval and cleared that with city staff. So, you know, again, these ongoing delays, every time we go back, there's a new delay and a new request. And so to come to this point where we've finally addressed all of those, we've negotiated in good faith, and to come to this point is really disappointing. So, this project is ready to go. We're on the agenda for the 18th. We're very optimistic that we'll be able to move forward and that you would give us some consideration. Again, if you put ourselves in our shoes, these months and months of work, engineering, negotiations, all of these accommodations, it would be square one, where we don't even know what that square one's going to look like until 6 months or more. It's an incredible setback. And it's a very difficult way to manage development. We're a very real company. We employ real people. We take seriously our commitment to provide really high quality housing and good quality commercial developments with high quality tenants. We've done that well for many, many years. We've worked well with the city of Walker. And again, this feels like a real betrayal of that good faith. And we hope that you will consider allowing an exception for Vista 45. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Chris Meyer. I'm legal counsel for the Gooddale family. For those of you not familiar with the Vista 45 development, that's the development that's immediately behind Meyer. So if you're standing on that development looking north, you're looking at a state trunk line. If you are standing on that development looking north, or facing north looking west, you see a cemetery, a crematorium, and a Goodwill thrift store. If you turn around and look south, you see high tension power lines. If you turn to the east, you see Meyer and the Farm and Fleet and the Fifth Third development. We've developed this, or proposed to develop it, and have worked with the city over many, many months, as Andrea indicated, into a multi-use development with commercial strip along the north and behind Meyer, then a multifamily section in the middle, and then down at the south near the high tension power lines, a retirement community. Wetlands all the way along the west side, along the cemetery, and by Goodwill. In your proposed ordinance, you cite 4 findings of fact as to why you think you can pass this ordinance. Not a single one of those applies to Vista 45. Number 1, you say the city finds that the ongoing growth in the city raises watershed sustainability and stormwater concerns. Vista 45 fully satisfies this with on-site water management and dedication of the wetlands, which we've already agreed to with the city. As Andrea said, the only issue on this development has been the access point to M45 to Lake Michigan Drive, and that access point was recently resolved. Number 2, the other finding that the city intends to make is an enhanced need for buffers for adjacent parcels at lower density levels. There's no lower density level next to us. There's a mire and a farm and fleet. That's about as high density as you can get. South of us is high tension power lines. To the west of us is a cemetery. To the north of us is a state trunk line. Again, this doesn't apply to the Vista 45 development. Number 3, an impact on future road development needs. Again, that was the only issue on this development. It took us many months of working with MDOT, as you might imagine. But we've worked out a resolution which will involve a new traffic light, which we're paying for on LaSalle. And that will be our main entrance into the development. And number 4, the proposed finding of fact is an impact on infrastructure requirements. This is an infill development. There's full infrastructure here. There's full water, there's full sewer. In fact, when Goodwill was approved by the city back, I'm going to say in 2009, we were required to give an easement across our property for City of Grand Rapids water and sewer so that that could serve Goodwill, knowing that that would also then serve us. And so all of that is present there. We have full infrastructure, we have a state trunk line, we have 0 neighbors of less density. In fact, I think this might be the only development I've ever done as a real estate lawyer where there's been 0 neighbor opposition because it fits so well. And as Andrea pointed out, from the Planning Commission for all aspects of it, other than that point of entry, came many, many months ago. So we'd ask, you have exceptions. You call them exemptions in your proposed ordinance, subsection C of section 2.1. We'd ask that you put something in there, recognizing that this doesn't and shouldn't apply to a development like Vista 45. So perhaps one way to drafting it, and I'll turn it over to your lawyer for that, would be to say any development not adjacent to a residential zone, or any development that's adjacent to a state trunk line, or any development that does not fall within the findings of fact. Because Vista 45 is well on its way to being a successful development, does not impact any of the concerns identified by the city in its proposed ordinance. And we ask that therefore an exemption be written into the ordinance for Vista 45. Thank you.
All right, anybody else?
Thank you. My name is Ken Vermeulen. I'm an attorney with the Honigman Law Firm. We represent JPIG Ventures and River Ridge LLC. I'm here tonight for my partner, Pat Lennon, who, having just learned about this agenda item this morning, had an irreconcilable scheduling conflict tonight and couldn't make it. But I would like to formally object and express our disappointment and opposition to the proposed emergency ordinance to impose this moratorium on the issuance of building permits. To our surprise, this emergency moratorium wouldn't only apply to new applications, but as was just mentioned by the previous commenters, to applications that have already been submitted. As many of you are probably aware, JPIG has been working on this project at 740 Green Ridge Drive for approximately 2 years. We first met with the city for a pre-application meeting on October 21st, 2021. We submitted our first site plan on April 6th, 2022, over a year and a half ago. We've pursued this development in good faith and at great expense, including numerous public hearings and meetings with city officials. We were very surprised and dismayed, frankly, to learn of this emergency moratorium this morning, the day of the meeting. Despite working hand in hand with the city for over 2 years, no one at the city notified JPIG of the proposed emergency moratorium, even though our last meeting with them was less than 3 weeks ago. It's disappointing that despite numerous phone calls, emails, and person-to-person meetings, JPIG representatives were never informed of this emergency moratorium. And while we don't mean to be too self-centered in this, the circumstances suggest that the failure to notify Jade Pig was no accident. The city knows that we've asked for our application to be considered at the October 18 meeting. After 2 years of effort, we were hoping to have the site plan approved at that time. This, combined with the fact that the emergency moratorium has been carefully crafted to include our development's specific site plan requirements, signals that the purpose of the emergency moratorium is to block the Planning Commission's decision of our application. It's no coincidence that the emergency moratorium applies only to residential development of land at a proposed density of 3.5 acres, or 3.5 or more units per acre. Our proposed development has a density of 3.79 units per acre. Equally important, there is no emergency necessitating the consideration of this emergency moratorium. If there is an emergency at all in the city of Walker, it's the need for exactly the type of housing that the development would provide. The city knows that there is a dire need for additional housing, and that need was known at the time that the master plan was approved, approximately 3 years ago. As such, there's no need, much less any legal grounds, to delay or stop progress on new housing projects. Instead, the proposed justification for this emergency moratorium is the need for more detailed interpretation of the city's adopted master plan. Remarkably, that master plan is a 10-year plan that was adopted 3 years ago. Not sure what the emergency today is. In addition, the city must know that it's highly unusual for a moratorium like this to apply to pending applications. Jade Pig has gone to great lengths to address the concerns surrounding this development for nearly 2 years. If anyone's memories need to be jogged, recall that Jade Pig submitted its preliminary site plan 3 times. It met with city officials on numerous occasions, and like I said, most recently on August 23rd. We participated in multiple planning commission meetings, hosted a site visit and a community outreach, and has participated in various work sessions. It's remarkable that the city would consider a moratorium approximately 1 month before the planning commission hearing that should have resulted in the approval of this development after nearly 2 years of work. If the city adopts this moratorium, it'll find itself on legal thin ice. Based on the facts and circumstances that have led up to this decision, there may be grounds to contend that the moratorium is invalid because zoning actions based on capitulation to public pressure rather than governing law routinely are invalidated. We hope that further legal review of this action will not be necessary. And to that end, we urge this council to deny the moratorium or, at a minimum, accept pending applications like the one you just heard about and ours from the moratorium and allow these pending applications to proceed. These comments are not our complete statement of our objections to the emergency moratorium and of the procedures by which it's being proposed, but we had no notice of the city's actions until earlier today, and its analysis of its rights is ongoing and our rights are expressly reserved. I will provide a copy of our written comments to your attorney for inclusion in the record. Thank you.
Do we have anyone else on public comment on agenda items only? Going once, going twice. All right, we'll move forward then. Next on the list is consent agenda expenditures in the amount of $366,240.25. If there's no discussion on the bills, if somebody make a motion and support, please.
So moved.
Support.
Commissioner Babcock, Commissioner Groders, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you. Next on the list is Resolution 22-682 to approve Winchester Woods Phase 3 streetlights and the installation of 4 new LED streetlights. Our city manager covered this in our 6:30 committee of whole meeting. Is there any other questions or discussion on said streetlights?
So as I understand it, it will be paid for by the developer and then maintained by us afterwards, correct? Okay.
See none, I turn motion for approval and support then, please.
I'll make a motion.
Commissioner DeShane,
Support.
Commissioner Babcock. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you. Resolution 23-682 is passed. Next is Ordinance 23-672 is the emergency ordinance to amend Chapter 2, Article 2, to add Section 2-1 to impose a temporary moratorium on the issuance of any building permits, demolition permits, land divisions, land combinations, lot line adjustments, or other similar approvals for designated properties. The reason that we have this in front of us, and I'll jump out on this one and then have commission discussion on this. One of the things, there has been a considerable outcry from our residents on the rapid growth that this city has had. And this is, I'm going to focus, specifically residential commercial areas, not the designated industrial zones and so forth, which I'll come to in a minute. But when you look at, who we represent, and it's the voters that put us into office, they have voices, and we continue to hear with really a growing fever of making sure, growing fervor that make sure to get this right. And we have a lot on our plate. So from a timing perspective, there is a lot coming through the pipeline. So after discussion with city staff, elected officials, appointed officials, and elected officials, I'll take that point of that, is that we have to make sure what interpretations of the master plan are consistent. And right now, we do have on some of these projects some differing views. It's been noted at the Planning Commission. It's come up here at times, and really it's something that we feel right now with some of the projects that we have in the pipeline. We just need to make sure that the interpretation of what that master plan is meant, the intent of it, is that we get that right. So really, in short of this is meant to be, recommendation is a 6-month pause at the 3.5 acres that is inclusive of the significant developments that we have within the city, and for really a period of just the 6 months to make sure that we get this right, because once that development starts, it's done and over with. And I would just ask this commission, this is, one thing we've talked about from a suburban community perspective. I don't think there's anybody with any type of understanding or knowledge of facts that have taken place over the last few years here that cannot validate that we as a city have had a very aggressive residential growth, not in just the industrial and business growth, but residential as well. So I believe it is well within our purview at a time when there are starting to getting to be conflicting interpretations of that master plan that, yes, is a few years old, that we take a slight pause to make sure we get this right before we start doing things within the community that the residents have asked us, just to make sure we get this right. Interestingly enough, was doing a little bit of research on this, and I found from a committee whole meeting of the City Commission of May 13th, 1974. And interestingly enough, and I want to give this as a comparable in the intent, not necessarily of the type of development, but in the city manager's report that night there was a moratorium on industrial property between Walker and Fruit Ridge that was discussed and recommended to the commission for approval and subsequently approved, I believe. The mayor indicated that a moratorium on industrial property permits be made in the area of Fruit Ridge and the Expressway until the following questions are answered. And it talked about railroad completion. Planning Commission had to complete a study for compatible use, and the only outlet to the property is a residential street, which should be affected adversely. So there's a number of things in there. But if I reflect to today, and I could even reflect back to 10 years ago, I think it turned out all right up there, and it was a slight pause that this commission took in getting that right at that point. There are tools in the box for us to be able to use. There could be short terms, long terms, different mechanisms, but just we are not in uncharted waters as a community in doing this because we want to get this right. And I'm going to remind this commission, we represent the 25,000 plus people that live in this city. Property owners do have rights. They do have rights, but we represent the 25,000 people, and the voices we're hearing right now is, please make sure you get this right, because once you start, you can't undo it. So the resolution ordinance in front of us is to amend that to put basically a summary of a 6-month pause moratorium on any development permits, what have you, as designated here, for any development in excess of 3.5 or more units per acre. That being said, commissioners, I will open up for comments, discussion at this point.
Mayor, thank you. I appreciate the developers' comments. I certainly do. A lot of time and energy has gone into it. From my seat, though, I've been on the commission now just over 2 years, and I've been talking about this since my first weeks, about how do we have that vision for the future of our city, and how do we put that vision into place. And so from my point of view, it's been an issue for me that we addressed this for quite a while, because I've asked about, well, how come we didn't work on them as soon as the new master plan came out? How come we didn't kind of take action that we probably should have? But I wasn't here, and I don't know why that wasn't done, but we are where we are now. So it has been discussed for a long time. I've talked to the city attorney about this a year and a half ago, a long time ago. This and other possibilities. How do we get this working? So, we talked at Committee of the Whole earlier about getting the library right. How do we get the library right and make sure it's part of the vision of our future city? We're working hard on Standale with the DDA. We're putting the new lighting in. And how are we going to envision redevelopment in Standale and on Alpine and those major parts of our city? And we're trying to do that with a look to 20, 30 years from now. And I think we all agree now that that's very important. Well, the master plan is it's kind of a chicken and egg thing, right? There's zoning, there's a master plan. The master plan is supposed to guide the zoning's supposed to be in it, but the two things need to be in cycle with each other. The master plan cannot help us if our zoning is not aligned with it. And I think this is something we've got to do and we've got to get right. And I appreciate the difficulty we're causing folks who have plans to develop this and that. But I don't think we should make exceptions. I think this is something that needs to be done. It probably needed to be done, and I'm in support of it.
Thank you.
I'm just going to say that it's a temporary moratorium. It's not a, finality, and I think that's just gives us as a city an opportunity to pause, slow down, and evaluate what we need to do to move forward. Sometimes I feel like we need to really evaluate our past, and we need to look at some of the past developments we've done, and to better understand what worked well for us and what did not. And we need to move forward based on our lessons learned for the betterment of our future here in Walker and the betterment for its residents. So again, I understand the frustration that developers have, but it's just a temporary pause so we can just, realign everything to be better for Walker and its future residents.
Thank you, Commissioner DeShane. Comments down here, Commissioner Groders?
I would just echo everything that Commissioner DeShane said.
Thank you. Commissioner Babcock?
I appreciated Commissioner Burke bringing up the ordinance in the master plan and getting that right. I think that's a huge piece of this puzzle. I also believe that doing this is the responsible thing to do for the city on behalf of its residents. I think we talked earlier about the deer population being one of the #1 complaints, but I hear more so about protecting the green space and making sure we're making the right decisions. And so on behalf of my ward, I would be in approval of this.
Thank you. Commissioner Gilbert?
Yeah, I appreciate all the comments that everyone's made. I certainly appreciate the feedback from the developers and understand where they sit in this. For me, I think I'm uniquely positioned here. I chair the zoning ordinance rewrite committee. I am the ex officio to the planning commission on behalf of the city commission, and I sit up here with all of you as we continue to watch the city develop. So I think that one of the things that I really struggle with as we review a lot of these major projects, right, is, as has been mentioned, the alignment of our zoning ordinance and our master plan. And we're doing so much of that work in this comprehensive rewrite of the zoning ordinance. And I think so much of the intent of what we wrote into that master plan that's been really difficult, I think, for our staff to interpret and be the deciders of as they review these projects that come through. I think we intend to do a better job of reflecting what our vision is for the city in that zoning ordinance rewrite. So I think that's a big piece of this puzzle, and making sure that we get these two pieces to fit together properly. And I think that without that, we continue to run into these issues with these major projects coming through, and I guess a lack of clarity around how do these things fit together. So it does become, frankly, a capacity issue, because we have so much volume moving through these the planning commission, that I can imagine that on our staff having to re-parse through every word of these master plans and review these projects at this level and this depth over and over. I can understand the issues that it could cause for us and how complicated it makes the review process. So I think that getting all of these things to align better, making sure that we're respecting the process that we're going through on this zoning ordinance rewrite, to make sure that we get all the pieces in place to really make this master plan vision that we set out as a city, and it's a 20-year vision. So what we have in place there, we need to really respect that vision and that implementation, because if we don't realign these standards to fit that, then we're continuing to strive for a vision that we don't have the tools to implement. So for me, I think that this is a really important step. I think it's important that we respect the process that we're going through, the resources that we're dedicating to this zoning ordinance rewrite, that I think will better reflect what we're trying to achieve with our master plan.
Thank you. You know, I think some additional thoughts. One is there was a period of time there where we had rezonings coming to this governing body and asking for rezones, and we didn't have the PSAPs with them. And it really put us in a difficult position, but we are approving the to help our developers and our builders to continue that growth where it made sense. We now have taken that pause and that reflection of they need to come together, so those come together to this body. When they come forward, they don't come separate anymore. And I think the other thing too is that, in some of the discussion points around this, in talking with some of the key stakeholders, when we look at what we're recommending of doing for this commission to approve, there is a timeline to it. There's a documented process. This is not a fly by our seat of the pants reactionary type of thing. This is from my opinion, a well-designed, well thought out strategic plan to make sure, as Commissioner Burke said, we get it right. And I don't think we have it right now, so that's why we're recommending this. So it seems like we have a strong alignment up here. Is there any other discussion on this? Seeing none. Counselor, anything down there? We're good? So from that perspective, I'm happy to entertain a motion based on the comments that I just heard, a motion for approval and support. We probably should go into detail on this, for Ordinance 23-672.
Yes, I will make a motion for Ordinance 23-672 to approve an ordinance to amend Chapter 2, Article 1 of the Code of Ordinances for the City of Walker, Michigan, to add a new Section 2-1 to impose a temporary moratorium on the issuance of any building permits, demolition permits, land divisions, land combinations, lot line adjustments, or other similar approvals for designated properties.
Support. All right, we have a motion for approval and motion from Commissioner Gilbert, support from Commissioner Burke. Is there any other discussion on this? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Oh, we should do roll call there.
Yep.
Thank you. I knew that.
Nope.
We're good.
Mayor Carey,
Yes.
Commissioner Gilbert,
Yes.
Commissioner Babcock,
Yes.
Commissioner Groders,
Yes.
Commissioner DeShane,
Yes.
Commissioner Burke.
Aye, yes.
All right, the ayes have it on a 6-0 vote. Thank you. So ordinance 23-672, the emergency ordinance, is passed. Next on the list is ordinance 23- bring my reading glasses next time, 526, sorry, first reading to amend the zoning ordinance and map to rezone the property at 3210 and 3250 Lake Michigan Drive from SA to RPUD 2. This is a little bit of a conundrum we're in this evening because we've gone down the road here with the Planning Commission, and Commissioner Gilbert, feel free to jump in if there's any additional comments or insight there from your perspective. But we did just approve an emergency ordinance for a certain level of density, and I believe this density was 8 units per acre, if I'm not mistaken. So with that in mind, we have a request for rezoning on our property, and I should ask our planning director, 8 units, correct? Yep, so 8 units per acre, so that falls within the purview of the moratorium that was just passed, the 6-month moratorium. Commissioners, discussion on said item. Anybody?
Mayor, I haven't looked at, I'm not sure how we can approve this, given that we just did the moratorium. I'm not sure we want to make an exception. Not sure it makes sense.
I'm going to come left to right, Commissioner DeShane.
I agree with Tom.
Okay.
Good project, but I think we're obligated to table.
Yeah, and I appreciate Mr. Moderman's work on the project, getting within line, but it appears that we have a recommendation to, if that is a motion,
Happy to make a motion.
to table the proposed first reading to amend the zoning ordinance and map to rezone property at 3210 and 3250 Lake Michigan Drive from SA to RPUD 2.
Mayor,
Yes.
I think, as I recall through planning, typically in a tabling, you'll want to add a condition of when that tabling is set to, when you would target to end the tabling, so pending the end of the moratorium that we put in place at the city commission level.
So Council, I'm going to word this properly. So a period of 6 months, the moratorium, and we're going to reference Ordinance 23-672 that was passed 6 months, and I don't know the exact date off the top, but 6 months as the moratorium expires, and then this would be brought back to the group at this point for that rezoning. Correct? Okay. All right, we have a motion to table, to expire, and that tabling would expire at the time that the Ordinance 23-672, the emergency ordinance moratorium was just passed. We have a motion for support, I believe, Commissioner Gilbert, if you would redo that one for me to table.
Yeah, I will just reiterate the motion to table pending the end of the moratorium reference in ordinance number 23-672.
All right, thank you. Do we have support? Support. Commissioner Burke. Madam Clerk, if we can do the roll call again, just to make sure we get it right.
Mayor Carey?
Yes.
Commissioner Gilbert? Yes. Commissioner Babcock?
Yes.
Commissioner Groders?
Yes.
Commissioner DeShane?
Yes.
Commissioner Burke?
Yes.
Great, thank you, Commissioners. Next on the list is any other public comment on agenda items or non-agenda items as well. Is there any? Seeing none. Commissioner, City Manager comments. City Manager, Commissioner Burke.
I appreciate your recognition of 9/11, Mayor. I'd be remiss if I didn't also mention the Pentagon. I was stationed in the Pentagon on 9/11. I was on the other side of the building, though. So.
Commissioner? All right, I have a motion for adjournment and support, please.
Make a motion.
Commissioner DeShane.
Support.
Commissioner Groders. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? We'll see you on September 25th, all. Thank you.